It's amazing how you will find individuals that get thrown off by the timing. Like these two children that I saw double dutching. And the girl is sitting there waiting on her turn, and she couldn't wait for the other person to get tangled up and have to get out. And she was sitting there, and she jumped in and got tangled because her rhythm was off. It was her turn, but not her time. And sometimes you can be so anxious, just waiting to jump into a situation. Oh God, I want to get married. Oh, I want to get married because all my classmates are getting married now. Everybody in my little clique, everybody I went to school with, everybody got married. They got babies now, and Lord, I'm still by myself. Can you trust in His timing? Can you trust in His timing? I've been out of school for 3 years, and I ain't got this job and so, and they already got promoted, and they always making $20,000 more than a year than I am already. Can you trust in His timing? 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 Are you able to trust in the timing of the Lord? And this is what this battle was really about. Can you trust His timing? Can you trust? Had you been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Can you trust His timing? Can you trust His timing? Lord, I don't know why I didn't pass this test the first time. Can you trust His timing? God has a timing for all things. Maybe He's trying to build your character to be able to sustain you in the high place. Because when you get exposed, and if your character is not intact, your talent has the ability to take you in a place where only your character can sustain you. And if He hasn't worked certain things out, that crazy stuff that you could get away down here on this level with, you can't get away with it up here. And if you haven't dealt with that, and so God will strengthen your character. Can you trust His timing? Trust in God is really about trusting in His timing, because some people are looking at their watch and they're wondering why my ship has not yet come in. To trust God means to trust His timing. To trust, I don't know who I'm talking to in this house today, but to trust God means to trust in His timing. 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 I know they're acting like a fool right now. Trust in His timing. Trust in His timing. I know they don't look like the person that God promised to you. Trust in His timing. Trust in His timing. Trust in His timing. Trust in His timing. Have you ever assumed that bad things happen because God was not with you? Have you ever assumed that? Genesis chapter 28, verse 15 and 16. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. And then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Do you know God can be with you and you not even know it? You know why? Because we assume that God is only with us if we can see Him or feel Him. But do you know God is bigger than your sight and your feelings? Can you trust Him when you can't trace Him? Can you trust Him when you can't trace Him? Can you trust Him when you cannot trace Him, when you can't even see His hand, when you don't even understand, Lord, now what are you doing with this? Why did this happen to me? Why did I have to go through this trial? Why am I in the hospital? Why am I dealing with this challenge in my body? Why am I suffering with depression? Saved folks are not supposed to be depressed. Why? Why? God, if you were with me, God is always with you. Please remember this. Invoked or not, God is always present. Invoked or not, God is always present. He's always present. Even if you don't ask Him to come, He's there. He is there. He is. If you make your bed in hell, He's there. Where can you go? The psalmist was asking, whither can I flee? Where can I flee, run to that you are not there? He says, everywhere I go, God, you're already there. You meet me. I mean, God goes before you. He's with you. He's behind you. He's your rear guard. The Lord is behind you. The Lord is with you. The Lord is in front of you, and the Lord is within you. How are you going to get away from him? Ask him a question. If the Lord were with us, maybe this stuff wouldn't have happened to us. God is always with you. He's ubiquitous. He's omnipresent. Present every place, all at the same time. God is with you. Bad stuff can happen to you when God is with you, because God's got a purpose in the bad stuff being able to be worked together for your good. Didn't he tell us in Romans 8:28, and we know, not we think, not maybe so, and we know that all things, the good and the bad. I know, faith people years ago used to just think that only the good things. No. It's the good things and the bad things. You know, you have to, sometimes, you know how with lemonade, it is a tartness, that sour of the lemon, mixed with the sweetness of the sugar, that actually makes good lemonade. And have you ever dealt with weak iced tea? You can't even fix it when the tea is too weak. But sometimes if it's too sweet, see, you can add some water to it. You can put some more lemon to it. See, you can balance out sweetness and tartness, but you can't balance out weakness. And sometimes the only way that you can get weakness out is that God has to let you sit in hot water. That's what makes the tea strong, is that you got to be in some hot water, and strength comes to the tea. And you might be in the hot water wondering, God, why am I going through this? When we are weak, then is he strong. His strength is made perfect in weakness. But it's going to take some hot water. You don't make good tea with cold water. It's got to be hot. And have you ever noticed that when tea is hot, it's easier to sweeten? I don't like to deal with cold folks because they're not sweet. It's hard to sweeten people to give you the cold shoulder. But if there's ever a warmth to people, there's a sweetness. Heat wakes up the flavor in whatever it is. I don't like the cold food, and I don't like old food. I like soul food. But there's something about heat that just wakes up the flavor. Dog food is cold. I like heat to my food because it wakes up the flavor. It wakes up the flavor. But I just want you to realize that a paradox, we're talking about the divine paradox. A paradox is something that is made up of two opposite things that seems impossible, but it is actually true or possible. That's a paradox. How life comes out of death. It is both true and it is possible. Jesus said here in verse 25 and 26, he said, I'm the resurrection and the life. Though he were dead, yet shall he live. And if any man liveth and believes in me, he shall never die. I'm the resurrection and the life. And so I want you to understand, it's not life that's on the clock, it's death that's on the clock. You count down to death. Don't count your life down. It's death that's on the clock. It's death that's on the clock. It's sin. The wages of sin is death. Death is on the clock. Death is on the clock, not life. Live your life to the fullest. Don't just dry up and just fade away gradually. Live your life to the fullest. You ought to die, you know, what I meant on having a good time. Don't just waste away, just pining away. You ought to die having a blast, living your dream. You know, if you're going to break your hip, break it doing what you want to do. You know, have some energy in your life. And some life. Didn't Jesus say that I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly? Live life up to the fullest. Don't die before you die. It's death that's on the clock, not life. Why would you put your life on hold, counting down, saying, I don't have but another 20 more years to live, maybe just 20 more years? Well, live those 20, make them the most exciting years of your life. Just make it live up all the way to the end, and lay down when you get finished. When you honor the Lord, the Bible says, him will I honor. Psalm 91, him will I honor. With long life will I satisfy him. You go until you get satisfied. You go until you get satisfied. Blaze through this thing and have a great time. You're not a victim of life. It's death that's on the clock. Death is the thing that counts down, not your life. Don't ever count your life down. Don't ever count your life down. Well, mama getting old now, mama getting old. You getting old too. I mean, have you thought about the fact that you are older right this moment than you've ever been all your life? And then here's another thought. This is the youngest that you will ever be. You will never be this young again. But death is on a clock. Sin, the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. Everything that sin leads to death. Everything that you do that is sin has death built into it. All sin has a death date. That's why you don't get discouraged if you got members of your family that's not saved right now. Because the sin is on a leash. It can only go so far for so long. It's got death built into it. It will implode. Death is built into it. But life, the Bible says, thanks be unto God that gives us the victory. But you see, the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 25, verse 8 in the New Living Translation, it puts it this way. Because it is death that is swallowed up in victory. It is not life that is swallowed up in defeat. I want you to understand that. But here's Isaiah 25, 8. He will swallow up death forever. He will swallow up death forever. The sovereign Lord will wipe away all tears. It sounds like death is going to be defeated to me. This is the Old Testament prophesying, and it was really prophetic of Jesus. He will remove forever all insults and mockery against his land and people, the Lord has spoken. But he will swallow up death forever. It is death that's on a clock. And just remember that the womb of every mother is a watery grave. The womb of every mother is a watery grave, and life comes out of death. Life comes out of death. Life comes out of death. And here Jesus goes and he raises Lazarus from the dead. He brought life out of a dead place. There's some dead places in your life. You got some dead dreams, some dead visions, things that have died, dead hopes. And you need to be able to bring life out of that dead place. It was Charles Fiedelson that said, life is a series of little deaths out of which life always returns. It's a series of little deaths out of which life always returns. The person that God can use the greatest is a person who's already died to themselves. They've died to their ego. They've died to their selfish ambition. They've already died 1,000 deaths. That's what sacrifice is about. Sacrifice is about killing your flesh, not feeding it, not aggrandizing your flesh, killing your flesh. It's 1,000 deaths, killing the flesh. 1,000 little deaths, which always leads to a life of return. A life of returns coming back to you. And just think about this fact, that what tried to kill you but couldn't woke up the warrior in you. There's some warriors on the inside of you, and there's some things that came after you. There's some people that don't bristle up until they get a challenge. You know, my wife is like that. You know, there's certain things that, don't tell her what she can't do, because there's something that bristles up in that girl. She just loves a challenge. She said there's certain people, they don't even get mad until you tell them you can't do it. You know, if there's something that you don't want your children to do, tell them. If there's something that you do want them to do, tell them they can't do it. The next thing you know, they're trying to do it. They're going to defy what you are saying on them. And that challenge wakes up a warrior. The very thing that came to try to kill you will wake up a warrior in you. The very thing that almost took your life, that almost took your mind, that almost took your health, can wake up a warrior in you. You'd be surprised how you can get godly angry. That is what I call a righteous indignation or a godly anger. That doesn't happen until you've had some experience with Slewfoot. Y'all know who Slewfoot is? But what tried to kill you really serves to wake up the warrior in you. And I want you to know that death is a seed and birth is a harvest. Death is a seed and birth is a harvest. Death is a seed. What are you willing to give up so you can go up? Something has to be given up so you can go up. Death is a seed. Birth is a harvest. A woman receives a seed into her womb. Death is a seed. It goes into a watery grave. But she gives birth, and the birth is a harvest. It's life that comes out of death. John chapter 12, verse 24 and 25 says, listen carefully, unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. But there is life that can be resurrected out of every dead place. Life that can come out of every dead place. And when you're dealing with a dead-looking situation, face the facts, but keep the faith. Face the facts, but keep the faith. Face the facts, but keep the faith. And here's what you do. You pray. Jesus prayed. When he was dealing with Lazarus, he prayed within himself. It wasn't an outside show to the world. He prayed. And secondly, he believed. He believed. He had to even tell Martha, listen, do you believe that I'm able to do this? Do you believe? Because Jesus had great faith in his own words. He believed. He believed God. You pray and you believe. For anybody to even come to God, you must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. You believe, and then you seek him out of that diligently. So you pray, you believe. Here's the third thing, you thank God. You thank God. Even before there is any evidence of receiving an answer, you thank God. You know why? Because when you thank people, something comes alive in them. Gratitude brings life out of dead situations. Gratitude brings life out of dead situations. If you got a dead marriage, start appreciating your partner. Start appreciating you. New life will come. Because whatever you take for granted will eventually be taken away. Whatever you take for granted will eventually be taken away. But whatever you want to give life to, appreciate it. Appreciate it. Speak life to it. Say, you know what? I thank you. I thank you. I thank God so much for you. Speak life to it. Speak life to it. Because you have to ask yourself this question, what do you need to speak life to? What do you need to speak life to? Because we are not merely called to birth life, but to speak life. Or otherwise we will kill what we birthed. You're called to speak life, not merely to birth life. And I've watched people birth life and speak death to the very thing that they birthed. I've watched mothers in their own ignorance say damning things to their children that destroys their self-image, makes them feel insecure all of the days of their life. And you know why? The people that do that grew up without the love and affirmation themselves. And oftentimes it becomes a cliche where hurt people hurt people. But when a person lives with love, they learn to be loving and appreciative toward other people. And here's what people don't understand is that the words that hurt the most are the ones that are never heard. The words that hurt the most sometimes are the ones that are never heard. I mean, the words of a person that said, I love you. I'm proud of you. Somebody, if they've done you wrong, that just says, I'm sorry. The words that say, you are special to me. The words that, where somebody looks into your eyes and they say, I believe in you. I believe in you. The words where they say, I thank God for you. God blessed me with you. Can you imagine the life that brings when you actually learn to speak life? Because Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21 says that the tongue can bring death or life. It brings death or life. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Your tongue has the power to be able to speak death or life, and you have to ask yourself this question: what am I bringing forth, death or life? Am I bringing forth death or life with the words that I speak? And just realize that a parent's words become the inner voice of their child. A parent's words become the inner voice of their child. Hebrews teaches us that the worlds were framed by the Word of God. The worlds, the cosmos, the universe. And universe is a combination of two words, uni, which means single, and verse, which means a spoken sentence. And so when you really think about a universe, it is the power of a spoken sentence. It's the power of a spoken sentence. We live inside the power of a single spoken sentence. So when you have uni, verse, single, spoken sentence, verse, spoken, uni, verse, it's a single spoken sentence. That's what your name is supposed to be. But yet we will name children stuff that sounds cute and unique, and we have no clue to its meaning. And nobody else knows how to spell it. So we wind up with children named Shanae and all kinds of things, and we have no idea as to its meaning. But in the Eastern world, oftentimes in the Hebrew world, every name was a little statement. The Indians even had it, you know. Your name was a little statement. Your name meant something. Every person in Scripture, they knew what the name means. The name Daniel means God is judge. You know, that was the name John means gift of God. The name Jesus, Joshua, it means Jehovah is salvation. The name is a statement. The name Moses means drawn out of water. The greatest miracle that he was remembered for was leading the children out of the Red Sea, drawn out of water. That little sentence, he lived in the power of that sentence. His universe was created by that sentence of his name. And what are you naming people that are dear to you? And here's a more important question. What universe, single spoken sentence are you living inside of, and who created it? Don't let others create your world. They'll always create it too small. Your universe, your single spoken sentence, your universe, your universe. Because if people don't know you and how you're made and what your potential is, they will always make your universe too small, because they only see one dimension of you and they don't realize that you are a multifaceted person. So God has created you to be much more than what you look like. And you don't understand who I am by looking at my resume and seeing where I went to school and who my mama and my daddy was. That doesn't tell you exactly who I am. What the universe is, that spoken sentence over my life. I tell you, there was a man in a tattoo shop, and he's looking at one of the options on the wall saying, "Born loser." He asked the guy, "What in the world, who would get this? Would anybody get this?" He says, "Yes, people do come in and get this tattoo." And he says, "Why would anybody get that tattoo on their body?" And his response was, "Before tattoo on body, tattoo on mind." Somebody spoke and made them feel as though they were born loser. And here's the thing that they don't understand, is that the activity of your mind will determine the attitude of your heart. So whatever your mind has been thinking on, and if I start thinking I'm a born loser, if I start speaking this little sentence, I can't ever hold on to money. And that's the little sentence that forms your universe. You will always be broke. Here's another thing. If you ever show me, if you got 10 friends and 9 of them are broke, you'll be number 10. You know why? Because in that universe, you're going to find sentences, little statements that will limit your life. And may I tell you that in this divine shift of God, it is time to unlimit yourself. In the Old Testament, they sinned and limited the Holy One of Israel through their unbelief. Unbelief can limit what God can do in your own life. And by the words that you speak, you can condemn the size of your universe to being small. You have the power to be able to speak life and to call it forth. To call it forth. You pray, you believe, you thank God, and you call it forth. What needs to be called forth that has died in you? That has died in your life? You need to get your courage back. You need to get your boldness back, your vision back, because some of you have sat in environments that were so dark till your sight has been lost. When you sit in dark places, you lose your vision. But when you get around other visionaries, other dreamers, you start dreaming. Dreaming is contagious. When you get around somebody else who's creative, your creativity gets stirred. You got to be in the right environment and stir this thing. You got to call some things forth. There are some things that have to be called forth in your life. You have to call it forth. Call it forth. And you'll discover that you can have life out of death. Life out of death because you call it forth. Jesus simply said, Lazarus, come forth. And there's something that you need from a universe, a single spoken statement that you give power to with the words of your mouth and call it forth.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.